back to the Viking Update Show. He's John Krasinski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. This is one of our 3 Viking shows going right now, along with Alex Lewis's show and Jeff Diamond's show with the former Vikings general manager. The Viking Update Show is presented to you by Giggly THC Beverages and Onyx Hunt. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
Scott with Aquarius Home Services. Spring was all over the map, shoveling snow one day and enjoying the warm sun the next. But now we all know the real heat is coming.
Are you ready?
Get ahead of it with 50% off an AC tune-up. We'll give your system the VIP treatment, review the details, and answer all your questions. At Aquarius, we aim to wow you with incredible service and earn the right to be recommended. Visit AquariusHomeservices.com today.
Join us after the Twins Day game on Thursday, June 12th at Parlay Kitchen and Bar for the Talk North Sports Report live show presented by Giggly THC Drinks. Catch myself, Mark Rosen, Lavelle E. Neal III, John Krasinski, and our special guest, 5-time WNBA champion Rebecca Brunson. Reserve your VIP spot now at fanhq.com. Don't miss out. Well, the Kwesi deal finally gets done, and seemed a little anticlimactic. He just signed the deal. I'm sure it was a reasonable deal. I haven't seen any terms on it yet, but he seems happy. It feels like it was always going to happen. Did you ever at any point during the process start questioning whether there was any kind of a problem there?
I didn't think that it was ever not going to get done, I would say. I was certainly intrigued that it took as long as it did to get done. And, you and I have talked about this a lot on this show, but just knowing the way that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah operates, his sort of view of himself and his self-worth. And I could imagine that it was not a straightforward negotiation. But through the whole thing, what you heard from kind of the Wilf family side of things was that it was always an optimism that, yes, we'll land on something and this will work out. And so I never got the impression that anything was in danger of kind of collapsing, but this is business. And so it was just interesting to see that Kevin O'Connell got his done very kind of smoothly, and Kwesi took quite a bit longer to figure out.
Yeah. And, we did hear some things about maybe there being a little bit of tension in the front office between a guy who kind of works closer to bankers' hours and the football crazies who work 80 hours a week in the off season, but didn't keep the deal from getting done. I just think stability for this group right now is pretty ideal.
Yeah. And I do think, Jim, like when they made this hire, it was an outside of the box hire. And so I think that when you do go down that road, you need to build in a longer runway for this unique hire to get established, to figure things out, to get people around him bought in, and all of those things. It doesn't guarantee that he's going to be the general manager here for the next 15 years, but they've had a lot of success on the field, in his time here. And, I just you can't make a hire like this and then be like, boy, we didn't expect that there was going to be a little friction, or there was going to be a little bit of, disagreement or whatever you want, whatever term you want to use to talk about where Kwesi is, and then where maybe the dyed-in-the-wool football people are, many of whom have been there for a very long time, are, kind of around the operation. You had to expect that there was going to be an onboarding process that was going to take time for everyone to get used to. And so, when I had heard, and you have as well, those kinds of, just whispers about, it can be a little tense back there, or it's not, perfect fits and not meshing perfectly right now. I was not surprised at all by it. And I don't think that the Wilfs were either. And so you just have to be patient, I think, with a hire like this and with the rest of your building in terms of how it all fits together, especially when you are having the success that they've had in 2 out of these last 3 years. Like there is proof of concept there that yes, whatever is happening, not just with Kevin O'Connell, but with Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, is conducive to building a team that is having a lot of success, at least in the regular season, on the field.
Yes. Another, I don't even know if it's a storyline. It's more of just what they have to talk about during these OTAs. I mean, not a lot is happening that really matters a lot. But the fact that Justin Jefferson came out and said he understands that it's important for him to be at these OTAs, listen, we can't pretend he doesn't have an ego. We can't pretend he's not flamboyant. We can't pretend that he never shows emotions on the sideline or anything like that. But all in all, Jefferson just seems to be different from your typical NFL wide receiver who will take an OTA off, who will throw a fit on the sideline, who will yell at his quarterback. Jefferson has, at a very young age, built a reputation where it just sounds normal for him to say, of course I want to be at OTAs. I think it's the right thing to do for the team.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, from the NBA parlance of it, like, I think he's the Steph Curry version of a star player and not, Jimmy Butler or, many other of the divas that are out there. He seems to be the rare number one wide receiver that has sort of perspective beyond himself and his own production. And excuse me. We've seen it time and time again. How many other receivers with putting up the numbers that he put up would have been okay with the contract situation dragging on as long as it did. He never made a stink about that at all. And we would have seen a dozen other receivers handle that entirely differently. He has had to deal with just okay quarterbacks so far. And solid quarterbacks, but nothing great yet. He hasn't complained one bit about it. He is at all of these practices. He takes, I think, seriously his role as a face of the franchise. He's always speaking to the media after games and standing up in good times and bad and kind of taking some of that pressure off of other teammates, which I think is really good. And the other thing that is really impressive on top of going to these OTAs and doing these things, we saw him with JJ McCarthy sitting courtside, at a Wolves game. Like, that is a veteran wide receiver taking the time to understand what his role is in making JJ McCarthy comfortable and giving him agency and letting everyone else in the organization know that this is our guy and that I'm backing him. So, Jim, we have seen him in gestures very big and very small look like a player that understands that there is a greater significance to his standing on this team than just himself. And I just think that that is a very unique position for a star wide receiver to be in. And I just don't know that you could ask for anything more from Justin Jefferson in that respect. And so to be able to understand that you're face of the franchise at a position that typically breeds sort of self-centered players and star players that can really cause problems. Jefferson has done none of that. He has been the perfect soldier in that way. And I think that in that respect, it's also the perfect guy for a young quarterback who is unproven to be introduced into the environment that JJ McCarthy is coming into. There's going to be a lot of pressure on his shoulders to deliver on a team that wants to win and win big. But you can already see that Jefferson, by virtue of coming to these OTAs, by virtue of bringing him to a playoff game, with the Timberwolves by virtue of just everything that he is doing. He's saying, I've got this kid's back and I'm going to help him through it. And there is no wallowing. There's no, why aren't we going and getting Aaron Rodgers? There's no like any of that with him. And it just takes a lot of the pressure out of the building when we've seen players in his position on this team in the past act completely differently.
I'm going to have to make a point about the school he attended that might surprise people. I will do so after we thank Giggly THC Beverages. I'm sitting here with my wife's favorite, the iced tea that's coming in on the camera. I'm sure it is. I also have the pineapple mojito. It's one of the 4 cocktail flavors. They also have seltzers that are really nice and light. You can get low dosage, high dosage. You can get the stuff that's fun to party with on the weekend. You can get the low dosage stuff that just helps you sleep or helps you relax. I highly recommend it. This tastes good. It tastes good, and you're not going to wake up with a hangover. You're not going to wake up feeling lethargic. I just love that. Highly recommend it. You can find Giggly at Quick Trip stores all across Minnesota. You can find them a lot of other places as well. You can go to giggly.com and use a promo code Giggly North, Gigli North. You get 50% off your first order. If you stay in, find them on socials or go back to the website, you will find more deals like that. There always seems to be a discount. It's low calorie, based on fruit juices, tastes great, healthy, gluten-free, vegan, all that stuff. Highly recommended. Giggly. And also want to ask you a question. Have you ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that? Or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs. That's where OnX Hunt comes in. And it's not just for hunters. There are folks using OnX for their jobs every day throughout the country, from farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property. This app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, OnX Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it free for 7 days. Download OnX Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or visit onxmaps.com/hunt to get started. I think we associate LSU football with some divas. The Odell Beckhams of the world. They've had some spectacular draft busts. Maybe just that's the percentages. But you think about it. Jefferson has been, pure class. Joe Burrow is probably as good a guy as there is in the NFL and one of the great leaders, and blames himself even when it's obvious that it's not his fault. Jamar Chase could have held out, could have not played last year because he didn't get the deal he wanted. Instead, he went out and had the best season of any receiver in the NFL, broke some records, I believe. And then Jaden McDaniels comes in the league and looks like not only a great young player, but a great leader. Very interesting that LSU is producing not only great players, but great guys who have leadership skills like that.
Yeah. And I think I'm wondering, Jim, if like in the case of Burrow, Chase, and Jefferson, when you play for a team that dominant, a team that was maybe one of the best college football teams ever, or certainly had one of the best seasons of all time, I do think it requires a certain level of sacrifice and sort of perspective that is unique. There's obviously big egos on those teams, and there's a lot of pride, but when you look at that team and how many first round draft picks there were, first day draft picks there were, and how much talent was on that roster, it's a little bit harder, I think, to make it all about yourself. And it turns you into, I better work my tail off or else I'm going to get left behind and I'm not going to get on the field with these guys. And so maybe, those early days with that team, and battling out in practices and fighting for playing time and all of those things really does instill a different level of perspective and of kind of teamwork and selflessness and things like that we have seen in a lot of those guys. Now, if we go up and down the roster, would be able to find a bunch of selfish guys? Probably, but the ones that are making it and are becoming stars seem to have that quality in common.
Yes. Let's get on to the Vikings' last need. It feels like the last pressing need is probably more cornerback depth. Maybe they can make it through with what they have now, especially if Mekhi Blackman comes through. But you feel like they could use another corner, just like last summer. We said all summer they needed another one. They went out and got Stephon Gilmore. Do you think the Jalen Ramsey possibility is worth discussing and realistic?
I mean, I would certainly discuss it. Absolutely. I mean, it's clear at this point in his career, I think he's 31 years old now, that he's not prime Jalen Ramsey, but Stephon Gilmore wasn't prime Stephon Gilmore, and he still came in and had a really good stay with the Vikings, I think. And so I don't, even it would be awesome if they were able to find a A1 Champ Bailey, Deion Sanders, that kind of level of lockdown cornerback to come in and just really be the number one guy. But that's not realistic. But I think with what they've built in that room with Byron Murphy, with Isaiah Rodgers, with Blackman coming back, Okuda is a worthwhile flyer, like guys like that. If you add another veteran like Jalen Ramsey to that, where you're not asking him to be the Jalen Ramsey of his prime, but you are asking him to be a competent, cornerback that can help out quite a bit during the season, I'm all for bolstering the depth at that position as much as possible. I don't, Alec Lewis wrote about it at The Athletic. I'm sure it's been written about at the Star Tribune and other places, about what you would have to give up for him to get in a trade. I can't imagine that the asking price would be terribly high. I mean, he is a 31-year-old cornerback. He has the contract that you have to deal with, like all of that stuff. Like if you could get him for a fourth or maybe a fifth round pick, something like that, I would look hard at that and adding more talent, especially one Kevin O'Connell has familiarity with him. They were together with the Rams. Why not, as long as the asking price isn't too high? And if it's too high right now, wait, it'll drop. Like I don't think you need to rush into going to get Jalen Ramsey. You could bring him in August and he'd be just fine, playing here as well. So I think time is on their side with the Vikings in this. And I absolutely would be interested in Jalen Ramsey if I were the Vikings.
Yeah, that would give them 3 veteran quarterbacks to start. It would give the kids time to develop. Blackman, maybe McLaughlin, we'll see. I would just feel much better about that secondary if they had a player like him. Maybe it'll end up being Gilmore. Maybe it'll end up being a Griffin, but I think that'd be a pretty good move. All right, let's get to developments with the team the Vikings are really trying to chase down. The first one from Talk North star Michael Russo for Clamshell Beach Resorts.
Hey, have you been dreaming of a lake cabin lifestyle with boating, fishing, and family fun in northern Minnesota? Well, lately I've thought a lot about how cool it would be to have a getaway like so many Minnesotans. And if you're like me, you probably think that owning your own lakeside getaway is beyond your budget. Well, if you think lake cabin real estate prices keep going up, well, think again. This is Russo, and I'm here to tell you there is an affordable way to enjoy a cabin lifestyle and all that goes with it. And yes, I said affordable. I founded a Clamshell Beach Resort, which is located on the Whitefish chain of 14 lakes for you and your family to enjoy. Here's how. Clamshell has lake homes that offer deeded fractional ownership, and the keywords there are deeded and fractional. You own it. Imagine having 5 weeks a year to enjoy Clamshell with its beaches, pool, and lodge that's full of kids' activities. Is golf your game? There's a great golf course right across the road. Like winter sports? Well, you can go ice fishing, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling right out the door at Clamshell. And there's no maintenance, no grass mowing, no snow removal. It's done all for you. And you can own a share of Clamshell Beach Resort at an affordable price. To learn more about ownership opportunities at Clamshell Beach Resort, go to cottagesonwhitefish.com or contact Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. That's cottagesonwhitefish.com or Pat Egan at 612-220-9819.
And I want to tell you about Twill in Edina Galleria. I bought this like, I don't know, 8 years ago from Twill. And as you can see, I've worn it so much. I've worn it all over the world. I've worn it to play golf. I've worn it to work out. I've worn it just because when I fly, it's the most comfortable hat I've ever had. It's typical of my experiences at Twill in the Edina Galleria. This is a Johnny O hat. I have a new Johnny O hat I'm going to be wearing soon. As soon as this one's completely done, I'm wearing a Peter Millar quarter zip and a Johnny O shirt underneath it. I played in Randy Shaver's golf tournament this week. Everything I wore there, I bought at Twill. I spend my own money there because it's great stuff and it lasts forever. It wears like iron. It looks good in all situations. Just great to be partnering with, as we so often do, with a local shop that we shop at ourselves. That's kind of how we do things on this network. So thanks to Scott Dayton. Go to Twill in the Edina Galleria, or you can go to twillmn.com, look at what he has, which brands he carries. He's very particular about what he carries. It's a nice, cozy shop. You're going to be able to walk through in 5 minutes, see something you like. Highly recommend it. Also, nothing better for a graduate than getting some clothes they can wear to job interviews or even on the golf course. So think about a gift certificate as well. Thanks to Scott and Twill in the Edina Galleria. Also want to tell you about Natrium. Go to the Natrium shop in St. Louis Park. Talk to a sales professional. Let them tell you exactly what's going to work well in your life. Some people like having, gummies or candies or dips or bombs or drinks for relaxation. Some people like for sleep aid. Some people like it to de-stress. Sometimes people just like the flavor and want to drink something or consume something that isn't alcoholic. I recommend all those things. My wife and I tend to use them for sleep and for relaxation. But again, go to the store, figure out what you like. Then you go to natrium.com and have them deliver right to you. Natreum, natrium.com. So the Lions lose both coordinators, and now Minnesota native Frank Ragnow has announced his retirement. Man, I just feel like I still think they'll be a good team. I don't think they're a scary team they were last year, with Johnson as one of the most accomplished and important coordinators in the NFL. Aaron Glenn doing a great job, even with an injured team. And now the offensive line, the heart of the offensive line, which is one of their great strengths, is gone. Again, I'm not predicting disaster, but I do wonder if that limits their ceiling.
Well, I will say unequivocally, this is where the Lions are going to be tested and where they will be able to answer the question of, are they a team that had a couple of good years, or are they an organization that can sustain success? Because the hardest thing about being a good team year in and year out in the NFL is battling with attrition. It's losing coordinators for head coaching jobs. It's losing guys to injuries or retirement as they age out, and really important guys, and being able to replenish those. And so what I have not been able to really read into, in the last day or so since that news broke, is what the Lions contingency plan is behind Ragnow. Did they draft someone? Did they know this was coming, or this was a possibility, or was this more of a surprise to them? Because, if they did go into the draft and grab someone, I would feel confident in Brad Holmes and those guys of being able to kind of patch some things together. But, if this is a little bit more of a surprise, it certainly is another big blow. They've suffered some very big losses from that team last season, and it's really on Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell to show that, yes, we are the sum of our parts, and these guys were valuable, but we have instilled an identity and a standard here now that will require and demand that other people come up and meet it. And so, if the Lions are able to again be at the top of the division and win a bunch of games and go into the playoffs, I do think it'll be more impressive than last year, when they were so good from wire to wire, because, they have suffered some really big losses here, and how they weather that will be the determination on, or will be I would say a referendum on the culture and the standard that they think that they are building there.
Yeah, I'm going to seriously downgrade my pick for them, I think, when it comes time to make our picks. Looks like rookie Tate Ratledge, second-round pick from Georgia, has been taking all the snaps. They seem to be pretty high on him. So, it sounds like they have someone with talent stepping in. It's hard to imagine anybody being as good as a player or in that role as Ragnow was. He was known to be a great guy and a great leader on top of everything else. It'll be a little different with a rookie center. Offensive line, I would expect, would still be very good, but it just feels like their success is chipping away at them, which can happen.
Yeah. And I think that it is conceivable that the rookie can get close to Ragnow from a just performance on the field standpoint. Center is a position that I think young players can come into and play right away, and do well in. But to your larger point of, Ragnow was such a part of that locker room and that culture and the toughness that he played with, set a tone, and certainly answered the call from what Dan Campbell wanted in his guys. And so you never know. It would be unreasonable to expect a rookie to come in and be like the kind of fulcrum of that locker room the way that Ragnow was. And it's kind of the same way with Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, but Aaron Glenn in particular, about how vocal he was and what a just voice and presence that he was in that organization. And replacing the leadership part of things and the intangible parts of things could be much more difficult, especially in the case of Ragnow, than actually the production on the field, which was excellent.
No doubt about it. I had this thought today because, even though I've covered the NFL for 36 years or something, I think people identify me with baseball coverage. You, of course, are identified with your basketball coverage. It is weird covering a sport, and we both cover the Vikings, where people care about practices.
Oh man,
it's just so different. It's like
yes.
Nobody cares what happens unless Jimmy Butler's punking everybody. Nobody cares what happens in a Wolves practice. Nobody cares what happens in a spring training game. If you're smart, the worst thing about spring training is they can fool people into thinking, that Luke Hughes is going to be a major league player. Hockey. They don't even keep reporters out of the hockey practices because they can't practice plays. You're just throwing pucks around. It's the demand and the interest, the demand for content and the interest in the Vikings and most NFL teams is so high. We end up talking about things like what happens during OTAs. And I guarantee you none of it matters unless somebody gets hurt. And we certainly don't want that.
Yeah. And you will hear coaches tell you over and over again when you look at, hey, so-and-so is with the first team in this, or so-and-so is in the second or third team with this. And what does that mean for pecking order stuff? And they will tell you John, just do not pay attention to that. We are trying things out. We are experimenting. There are sometimes you can maybe draw from it, but by and large, it's just we're putting guys out there in different spots and trying to just work through things. And yet, I do think one thing about it is in the way that they're covered is, and I understand it. Look, there is an insatiable appetite for details of these practices and things like that. But I really do not like, Jim, that, hey, JJ McCarthy was 21 of 24 today and threw one pick and 4 touchdowns and stuff, and how detailed those reports are. I think they do a disservice to the players and to the readers, about this. And so I understand it. You can't, the fans cannot get enough of it. So you want to give all of that, but it's really important to add context to all of this stuff. And one thing I will say about it is, in some ways, the NFL is a little bit of victim of their own way they're doing, because it is clear that especially general managers, but head coaches as well, have emphasized how important it is to be at all of these practices. Like, this is the be all and end all. You cannot miss. And if you don't, and it's inexcused or whatever, it's a huge deal. But, so then you can't get mad when reporters are looking around. Hey, where is Justin Jefferson? Where is this guy? Where's that guy? And oh my God, this is a real problem. But general managers are like trying to browbeat these guys into, no, you have to be at this June 2nd practice. And if not, you're going to be far behind. And so, it's just like they ratchet up the importance of this stuff. But also I don't think that we help matters by putting out the, kicker X was 36 for 37 on extra points. Like that's it just should not be that way. It shouldn't be, because practices are for mistakes. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to play with stuff. And I think it gets a little crazy sometimes.
Agreed. And I don't think it's going to go backwards anytime soon. I think people are
Nope, it's only going to get more.
It's only going to get more. And so that's why on this show, and this network, we tend to be more big picture people. We aren't going to tell you about JJ McCarthy's completion percentage against air, but we try to add a little more context and color to everything that's going on with the Vikings. It will be a fascinating year. We will be back with you next week. Check out the John Krasinski show on the Timberwolves and them wrapping up their season. What might be ahead for them. We appreciate you listening to TalkNorth.com. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thank you. We'll talk to you next week.